Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ground and Pound podcast, the show where, as always, we're hitting you with them elbows of knowledge. And this Saturday, the fights take place in Abu Dhabi for UFC Fight Night. Whittaker taking on Derrida in the main event. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Carlos. What's happening, Carlos?
Absolutely nothing, brother.
And as always, if you're enjoying the content here on the Ground and Pound podcast, hit that like and subscribe button as your boys break down the full entire card, kicking things off in the early prelim opener of Martin Buday taking on the UFC debut of the 17-time Brazilian World Jiu-Jitsu champion, Marcus Buchecha. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Buchecha on this one. He's big, agile grappler, black belt for the fourth degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, highly decorated in gi and no gi competition. Once this hits the ground, you know that he's going to have the upper hand no matter who he's fighting. With a solid blast double that he uses to take his opponents down. But the one thing is at the higher level that you get, he does shoot from very far out. Somebody like Buday, I don't think is going to be an issue, but someone who's going to throw a knee or a hard uppercut, he's going to be susceptible to. So at this level, you're going to have to try to find a different means or cut the distance first. But anyway, in short, I'm going with Buchecha because I really don't see Buday being able to do anything. The stand-up wise, Buchecha's the faster fighter. He's a little bit more fleet of foot. I just think that Buday, although he's a very strong, powerful guy, he wants to clinch you, push you up against the cage, possibly take you down. If he takes you down, it's over for him. And if he gets a clinch, he's close enough where Buchecha's going to explode off the cage and take him down, put him on his back, put him in a bad spot for ground and pound, submissions, whatever he wants to do with him. So, yeah, I don't see Buchecha having an issue with this unless he gets caught standing up. Which, to be honest with you, he displayed a lot of toughness against Umar Khan, who's the heavyweight champion over in ONE FC. And, it wasn't a pretty fight for him on the feet, but he's able to take a shot. He's able to throw shots back. He's able to take down someone like Khan, even though Khan is an absolute tank. I'd love to see him in the UFC as well. And, he's got wins over Amir Ali Akbari, who is over, but still was stiff competition at the time he met Buchecha, and Kirill Grashenko, who, again, he's on the back end of his career when he met him, but is also a very solid striker as well, and he's been able to get the submission on these guys and the takedowns. I don't see Buday giving him any issue.
Yeah, Umar Khan is definitely a little tank, or I say a little tank. He's a huge tank, but if he's a tank, then Martin Buday must be the ice cream truck. This guy's very, very big for 265 pounds. Martin Buday, yes, I'm fat shaming again, Carlos, before you say anything. Martin Buday, former video game player that wanted to lose some weight. In order to lose some weight, he took up the great sport here of MMA. And he's very, very big for the weight class. I definitely think he has to cut a good amount of weight to get to 265. He probably walks around 280 plus. And to me, really all Buday wants to do is get you into the clinch, hold you up against the fence, make things dirty, kind of use uppercuts and knees in the clinch. Very, very basic striking style on the feet, fights behind the jab and likes to load up on the right hand, 1-2s, nothing crazy, right? And to be honest, as fights go on, he tends to fade due to that, kind of obese style. Let's just call it that. Marcus Buchecha, obviously, as Carlos said, he hit the nail on the head with some of the stuff that he talked about, fought over and won championship. Like I said, 17-time World Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion. I saw his record, actually, for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He is 138-14 in BJJ, so obviously goes to show how decorated he is. He also trained over at American Top Team briefly to get ready for his MMA career, which is arguably one of the best gyms in all of the sport. I think that they're going to be a great tool for him, getting him ready for fights inside the UFC if he is still staying at that camp. I really did like your explanation as well of how he likes to get takedowns. You see with a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, they tend to not have the wrestling or the skills to get the fight where they need to. He does have a very nice blast double. You see that in a lot of his fights. He is obviously from there able to transition into his ground game very nicely, where he's worlds apart compared to some of these guys inside the UFC. He has a nice stabbing front kick as well that he'll use, and I got to give him credit. You see a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, Ryan Hall, for example, their striking just looks, god awful. It looks like they've never trained a day in their life in stand-up. His stand-up is feasible. You know what I mean? Like, you can see him making a conscious effort to, to duck under shots, have head movement, blast kicks, go to the calf. He looks like he's somebody that's really taking this seriously. For that reason, I'm going to go with Buchecha. I think he gets the takedowns here early. The only way I see this one being sort of negative for him here is if he can't get the takedown early and Buday keeps this one on the feet and it just comes to a sloppy heavyweight striking match. But I think Buchecha is going to be enough of an athlete here to get this fight to the ground and find the submission at some point early in the first. And next up, we have Mohammad Yahya taking on Stephen Nguyen. The battle of the shit versus, the battle of the shit, the dog shit versus horse shit. Carlos, who are you going with in this one?
I took Stephen Nguyen in this one. Yahya, he's 0-2 inside the octagon. He's going to be looking for his first win, but he's a slow starter. He has a very relaxed style and pace, and it's because he's looking to counter. He's looking for the openings to capitalize on. But in the meantime, while he's looking for the openings, he's not really throwing much at you. He's not feinting. He's not, knee tapping. He's not doing anything to make you think he's going to take me down. He's going to hit me. He's just kind of waiting, and he flicks like a floating jab out there. And I'm not really a fan of that, but he does have some good finishes. So I'm like, maybe he's got a shot, maybe he's got a little pop on it. The one thing I don't like is that if he's fighting Nguyen here, and Nguyen kind of has the same style, this could be a boring fight. But when you watch Nguyen's tape, he does like to actually push the pace if his opponent's not doing it. And he likes to pump the jab a lot. He'll take his head off the center line. He will get into a little bit of an exchange, and he'll stand in one spot if he knows he's got you backing up, which will leave him open to Yahya's counters. But, he'll mix it up with kicks, elbows, knees, punches. And I think that it may be horse shit versus dog shit. I don't know which one you find to be more important. I'd say horse shit, so I'm going with Nguyen in this one.
Yeah, that's right. I think horse shit can used to be used for manure, if I'm not mistaken. So at least it has some sort of purpose. But I'm going with, I think Stephen Nguyen's going to win, baby. I think that's how we're looking at it in this one. Mohammad Yahya, just to kind of talk about him very briefly, former UAE lightweight champion, obviously so credentialed over there, known as the kind of UAE mascot is what I've been kind of calling him this week. He's the poster boy for the UAE. They obviously know him very much as the guy that's in the UFC. He's their hometown or home country guy. Very unathletic, very slow on the feet, very low volume. Kind of tends to throw one shot at a time as well. Doesn't throw a whole lot of combinations. And to me, he's got very bad striking defense. He relies a lot on his power and just touching the chin of his opponent, and kind of just makes fights a coin flip with him. But I do think that he has nice front chokes. He has nice darces and nice guillotines. You saw that against Trevor Peek when guys go in for takedowns. He does wrap up the neck fairly well. He almost got the choke on Trevor Peek. I believe it was at the end of the first round, I want to say. But to me, I just don't think he's UFC level. I don't think either guy is UFC level, if I'm being honest. The only thing I will say here is that Stephen Nguyen, to me, just shows that he's fought the higher level of opponent. I think he trains at the better gym. I think overall his striking's definitely the better out of the two. So I am going to go with Stephen Nguyen here. As I said, both guys not necessarily a high level. And you can see that with Stephen Nguyen. 2-1 in the Contender Series. Not always a good look when you're fighting a lot in the Contender Series. It means you probably weren't good enough to do it first time round. He got a decision on his second attempt and didn't get a contract. They brought him back for a third time. He was able to get the finish. So, again, like I said, both guys, not necessarily the highest level. Stephen Nguyen in his UFC debut fought John O'Aarons and decided to have a technical kickboxing match with a guy who was literally a technical kickboxer. So not necessarily a smart game plan from him there. Does have a counter-striking style, which I think will serve him kind of poorly here against Yahya, who can be a little bit low pace and low volume. I wouldn't be surprised if Yahya got a bullshit decision here, being the hometown guy. I will say that. Maybe the oil money comes in, but I'm going to ever so slightly lean to Stephen Nguyen here to steal this one with the better striking. And next up, we have Ibo Aslan taking on Billy Elkan. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I went with Ibo Aslan. Now, the interesting thing about Elekana is the fact that he does go for takedowns and he can control someone on the ground, and you've seen it in his past fights. But in those fights, he was kind of the guy that was pressuring. The other guy was a little hesitant coming forward. Against Aslan, he's just going to bull rush this kid, and he's going to throw a barrage of strikes at him, probably hurt him before he can get the takedown. At least that's what I'm thinking. Um, Elekana doesn't seem to have that kind of ability to, if you pressure him, be able to find a way to be a little bit more resilient and slow his fighter down. I think that just comes with time, and he doesn't have enough experience to do that. So I think Ibo's just going to overwhelm him. I think Elekana he's kind of here so that Ibo can get a big win for UAE and make him, give him something to cheer for, get a quick knockout. So yeah, I'm going with Aslan.
Yeah, two for Aslan here as well. I have to agree. I think this matchup's set up to give Aslan somebody that he can knock out pretty much. We've seen in the past with Ibo Aslan, power on the feet. The guy does hit very hard. He will swing very, very aggressively, especially early in fights. He comes out blitzing you very early. He wants to get that knockout. All of his wins inside the distance, all coming via knockout. So, and he said before in the past, he looks for the knockout. That's what he wants. He wants to give that to the fans. Sometimes that does leave him exposed for the takedowns, which we'll talk about with Billy later on. But to me, when you look at Ibo Aslan, the two losses he's had have both come via submission. One by Kutalaba getting the arm triangle. The second one was one of Carlos's favorite fighters, the Pleasure Man, getting the third round rear naked choke. I had to throw that in there for you, brother. And to me, this one really just comes down to me is touching the chin and the power of Ibo Aslan. I think he will swarm Billy early. I think that he will get the knockout here. But one thing I just want to say about Billy is you saw in his last fight, in his UFC debut, they talked about how he normally fights at 185. He does not fight at 205 very often, only obviously in the UFC. And he did look a little bit undersized in that fight against Bogdan Guskov. To me, I think that again he's going to be the much smaller fighter here. I don't think he's going to be able to handle the power of Aslan. He saw that he tends to struggle a little bit with the power of Bogdan, who also hits very hard. He's a big 205er. Billy does fight previously over in the PFL and obviously now the UFC in that previous fight. Stands southpaw, will blast kicks to the lead leg along with the high kick. He is very sort of snappy with his kicks, and he does come out early and look for takedowns, which he did in his previous fight. Took the back of Bogdangrad, looked like he was about to have this big upset, and ultimately kind of wasn't able to find the choke, and he looked a little bit tired coming into the second round. Maybe that was the short notice. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes out and tries to do the same thing here against Aslan, but I'm going to go with Aslan to find the knockout. I don't think that the takedowns and the early sort of a back attack like he had in that last fight is going to be replicated here. I think Aslan gets the knockout. And next up, we have Baby Shark. Tabatha Ricci taking on Amanda Ribas. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going to take Amanda Ribas. I think she's got a lot of movement. I think she can keep this fight on the feet. I know we talked about it briefly before we started this, and you said sometimes she likes to play jiu-jitsu off of her back, which would be a horrible idea, and I hope she understands that. But she did do that against Mackenzie Dern as well, and to be honest with you, I'm gonna believe that she's gonna keep her strikes long, keep movement, lateral movement, keep circling with 3/4 turns, and hopefully get this done. She's got the reach here. She's got advantages to go with it as well, and I think she's got a little bit more pop than Ricci has. Now, if Ricci gets in close, there's going to be a problem because she'll throw a lot of strikes at her in short and close distance. And with that judo, she's going to probably toss her right to the ground. And then she's got the jiu-jitsu and the submissions to go with it. So I think it'd be best for Ribas to keep this standing. Ribas is no bum on the ground, but if you're going against someone who's probably got a little bit more of an edge than you in the grappling department, you'd want to keep it standing. So I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. I'm going with Ribas. I think the experience, she could pull this out.
Yeah, this fight's like the battle of the hand gestures between Baby Shark, Tabatha Ricci, and Amanda Ribas coming out just constantly clapping. Both of these women obviously got their fortes when it comes to their little signature moves. I'm not going to start off with Ribas here. Very, very likable person, by the way. This is no hate on her. I'm about to kind of talk some shit, but when I break this fight down, but very, very nice person. Very lovable, very attractive woman. But what was she doing in that last fight against Mackenzie Dern, right? We all know Mackenzie Dern, not known for her wrestling, known for her BJJ. Amanda Ribas had the big striking advantage, but she wanted to, for some reason, camp out in the guard of Mackenzie Dern, a former world champion in jiu-jitsu, and just play the jiu-jitsu game. I think that low fight IQ of Brandon Allen must be rubbing off on her. She must be watching a lot of Brandon Allen fights. I'm not still salty about that dog of the week, don't worry. But she does have nice combinations. She does have good kickboxing, and I do think, like Carlos said, she is the better striker in this matchup. She ends combinations with the hands, with high kicks, so she can always be live for a finish with a head kick. She had a nice spinning wheel knockout previously in one of her previous fights. And I do think that instead of playing to her strength, sometimes she tries to rely a little bit on her ability to be well-rounded. But I think in this fight, her willingness to be able to grapple here is going to get her in trouble against a woman like Ricci. And when you talk about Amanda Ribas, her last 2 previous wins, these are her last wins. I think it's something like in her last 6, is Viviana Araujo, a 38-year-old who's barely scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of being above 500, barely above water in terms of getting a new UFC contract. And Luana Pinheiro, who's 1-5 inside the UFC on a 4-fight losing streak. So not necessarily the toughest level of competition she's beaten at this point. All of the other fights have all been losses. So when you talk about Tabatha Ricci, relentless pursuit of takedowns is what's going to be the key to me in this one. I think that she comes in, she looks for takedowns. I think Amanda Ribas obliges. I think that she gets taken down. I think Ribas can get a lot of control time, beat her up on the ground. And I think that her striking's always improving. I do think Ribas is the better striker, but obviously her boyfriend Callum Walsh is obviously always constantly working with her hands. Ricci obviously coming off of her loss over there in China against Zhang. I don't necessarily think that that's a bad loss, being the former title challenger and fighting her in her home country. She has good volume. She's tough as nails. She's constantly walking forward. Give me the underdog, Tabatha Ricci, here to get it done. I like the way she mixes in all of the martial arts. And we get some dissension here finally on the Ground and Pound podcast. Next up, we have Davey Grant taking on Damon Blackshear. Carlos, who you got in this one?
This one was just tough because Davey Grant, when he throws with everything. You know, he throws his whole body into it. He stings people all the time on the feet. Does he have the best takedown defense? No. He's never been like the most highly regarded wrestler, and he's easy to get down. Not easy. He's gotten better over the years, but he's always had difficulty with the ground. And against him on Blackshear, I just feel like he's going to be able to get this fight to the ground at some point. Now, if it stays on the feet, I think he could do enough to stay safe, because I think technically he can match, like, okay, the power of Grant. I think the technique can diffuse that power. So I think he'll be okay on the feet. So that gives him that extra option to look for the takedowns, look for the grappling. So, and, you know, Davey, the ageless wonder, I know that he's pulled off some good, victories against some young guys. I just don't see him doing it on this night. And I think Blackshear is going to get it done. He's going to smother him probably and get a submission.
Yeah, 2 for Blackshear here for me as well. I do like Davey Grant, the ageless wonder, 39, but still looking 30. But when you talk about Blackshear, obviously one of the very few people to get a submission of the twister kind in the UFC. You don't tend to see that very often. Obviously in his previous fights, he was known as a grappler, but in his last fight, went out and showed that he can strike. He does a good job of mixing in knees, especially when people try to time takedowns on him. He does a good job of mixing in elbows with combinations as well. Good fast hands. And that fight that he had against Talatong Lee, he showed that he's not just a grappler. In this one, I think he needs to go back to the grappling. As Carlos mentioned, Davey Grant, obviously not necessarily known for the takedown defense. 4 of his 7 losses coming via submission. That was earlier on in his career, so I think that he has obviously improved, like Carlos said. I do think that that's going to be the best path to victory here for Blackshear, though. I think in terms of the striking, Davey Grant likes to fight on the outside. He'll throw a lot of kicks. He'll sit on the outside and just constantly blast kicks to all 3 levels. And what I'm really looking for Blackshear to do here, which is why I ended up going with Blackshear, is I think that he's going to look to try and catch one of those kicks of Davey Grant, look to open up the takedowns and really just get a lot of top control. If Davey Grant decides to get up poorly or a little bit too sharpish, I think that Blackshear's going to be able to try and look for that neck and take the back, ultimately find the choke here. I think if Blackshear by submission isn't too bad in terms of price, I think it might be a good prop this week. But ultimately, I'm going to go with Blackshear to mix in the takedowns. I think he's going to be the more well-rounded martial artist on the day. I think Davey Grant is still doing very well. I think that he could definitely pull off the upset. But I just think that Blackshear's grappling is going to be a little bit too much and ultimately get the job done for him here. And next up, we have Muslim, the king of Kung Fu, Salikhov, taking on Carlos Leal. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I got to go with Mr. Leal in this one. I just think Leal's kind of a tank. He's got hard striking, uh, strong takedowns. I mean, strong takedown defense. Excuse me, and he slowly stalks his opponent, hits him with some hard strikes. Got some very solid Muay Thai, and he's also able to just punish you to the body. That's one of his biggest things. And I know Salikhov, he's on his toes. He's moving back and forth, in and out, and he's darting in. He's got spinning kicks, he's got, back fist. That's great and everything. But, at 41, he looks great. He's moving good. Leal's just going to press you and he's going to stay right in your face. And I don't think he's going to be able to hurt him. I don't think he's going to do anything to make him back up. And with that said, I don't think Leal's going to, I mean, he can get the finish. I don't know when it's going to come about. I would say possibly second round, but the pressure that he puts on the elbows and the knees and the punches to the body, like I don't see Salikhov winning this one. So Leal, let's get it done.
Yeah, could we just take a moment just to remember the last time what happened when Carlos Leal fought over in the Middle East? We need to get him a doll and we need to tell him to point to where they touched him because they absolutely, yeah. Anyway, you know what happened in that last fight. We're not going to go down that road again, but Carlos Leal got absolutely robbed last time he fought over in the Middle East. If you didn't know, now you know. Obviously, the guy loves to pressure on the feet. Big fan of Carlos Leal since moving over from the PFL. He used to be, pretty much like not necessarily a one-dimensional guy, but he used to look a lot more for takedowns than what he's previously done. Since joining the UFC, he just pressures heavily on the feet and kind of just swings wild, but it's still technical in the respect of he knows that he can find the chin of his opponents. He still keeps his guard high, but he just seems to kind of disrespect some of his opponents previously. He was walking down Alex Morono like he knew that nothing could hurt him, almost with disdain that he just knew that he needed to touch the chin once of the human helicopter Alex Morono in order to get the knockout. And I've been impressed with him. We know that he can mix in takedowns if he needs to. He's got a great calf kick as well. And to quote the great Joe Rogan, he's also pretty saucy. If you guys haven't seen, I think the guy might be on something, but that USDA is no joke. Maybe he's off the steroids now, but the guy is pretty saucy, let's be honest. And I just like his forward pressure. I think that's exactly what he needs in this fight here against Muslim Salikhov. Muslim Salikhov is a 5-time Wushu world champion, great kickboxing. But to me, this comes down to corralling the kicker. If you can get in the face of Salikhov and make this mostly a boxing match, getting kind of inside of him, mix in some takedowns as well, I think that's going to give Salikhov a lot of problems. He's not going to be able to use a lot of the flashy kicks that he has. Obviously, 4 or 5 spinning wheel kicks, victories that he's had over his course of 26 professional fights. He is very fundamental in the striking, can be a little bit low volume, relying on those kicks. I think if Leal takes those kicks away with his forward pressure, he'll eventually find the chin of the 41-year-old and ultimately get this one done here. The king of Kung Fu is no more. Move over. Carlos Leal gets his first win inside the UAE.
One other thing is because we were talking about the spinning attack of Salikhov. This is the one thing that makes me a little nervous. I do feel good about Leal, but when he backs up, his hands stay in front of him and he pulls his head back. For some reason, I could see that wheel kick coming. You know what I mean? But do I really think it's going to happen? I think he keeps pressure too close, so maybe not. But that's the one thing against someone who loves these spinning attacks, backing up straight with your chin in the air. I'm not too happy about that. Leal, we got to fix it, but I'm still with you, brother.
Oh, and just to point out as well, when he fought against Sadabusi inside the PFL, Sadabusi's got great spinning kicks and great overall, Muay Thai and kickboxing. And I think he could come in and maybe mix a few takedowns, even just clinch up against the fence like he did in that fight as well. That's a path to victory for him. I think Sadabusi is much tougher to take down than Salikhov is. But again, just another path to victory, something to think about this week when you're talking about putting Carlos Leal in parlays for sure. And next up, we have Arkansas Wrestling. Bryce Mitchell taking on Said Nurmagomedov. Carlos, that was a terrible impression of a Kansas, Arkansas person. I don't know how to do that accent, but who you got in this one?
That's all right, brother. I don't know how to do that either, but I'm going with Said. No, I'm going with Bryce Mitchell. Saeed has, I think he has more skill as a striker, of course, but I think when it comes to the wrestling and just like the grappling in general, I got to go with Bryce. I think that he's going to find a way to keep him down. And Nurmagomedov, it's not that he doesn't have any wrestling; he does. And he does have some submissions, but the issue is he never really wants to do it, and in not wanting to do it, he uses it when it's necessary. So that's not part of his game plan. So he ends up getting very tired using a lot of his wrestling. And I think that's where Mitchell will be able to capitalize because he's going to make him get up. He's going to make him defend the takedowns and he's going to make him have to defend the submissions. And I think Mitchell is just going to keep going back for it, back for it, back for it. And he's going to get it eventually against Nurmagomedov. So, yeah, I'm going with Arkansas's finest.
Yeah, I gotta mention
Is he from Arkansas? I don't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So.
I think he's from Arkansas. I believe so. I believe so. Yeah, this fight as well. One thing I did forget to mention before we talk about this one is Bryce Mitchell moving down from 145 to 135 here for this matchup, which is definitely influential in my pick for this one. And I think this fight's much closer if Saeed was at 145. I think the size and the thickness here of Bryce Mitchell for this wrestle-heavy game plan is going to be a big factor a big factor for him here. And when you talk about Nurmagomedov, we saw in his last fight against Vinicius Oliveira, he throws a lot of obviously spinning kicks, and he likes to sort of fight on the outside, very Kyler Phillips style in the respect that he fights, very much on the outside, bouncing around, always fighting on the back foot. And I think that's going to play into this fight. I think he's going to get tired here. I think Mitchell's forward pressure is going to obviously be very much in his face, getting him tired. And you saw in that fight against Vinicius, that constant pressure, eventually he kind of wilted to that. And he has a lot of big movements as well. Like I said, those spinning kicks. And with a lot of wrestlers that if they time those kicks, like I said to Carlos before we started doing this video, if you go back to that Valentina Shevchenko fight, when she did that spinning kick, Alexa Grasso was able to duck underneath, go in for the takedown, and ultimately that was what cost her that fight. I think Bryce Mitchell here could do something very similar. Time a spinning attack here of Nurmagomedov, go in for the takedown. He's the much bigger, stronger guy, thicker guy. Mixing in that grappling would be good. And I think here, when it comes to the grappling overall of Nurmagomedov, he's not necessarily known for his wrestling. He does have a fantastic guillotine, but I worry here that he might jump guillotine, and then obviously Bryce is able to defend it, and ultimately he spends the rest of his round on his back here with Bryce Mitchell on top. And to me, I don't necessarily think that Bryce Mitchell's all that, but if you go back and look at his recent loss against Gene Silva looks like arguably, the next title contender. He's up there, one of the tougher guys. And then that knockout loss that he had against Bryce Emmett. After that, when you look, he's beaten some really tough guys. Dan Ige, Edson Barbosa. Bryce Mitchell has all the skills in the world to win, especially down in weight here as the bigger guy. So give me Bryce Mitchell, as Carlos said, with the Arkansas wrestling. I think Carlos wins for the impression award.
All right, that was a horrible impression.
I can't do all of the southern draw. I don't know how they do that one, but one thing we need to talk about here is the accents on both of these guys. The broken up English is fantastic. We have Bogdan Guskov taking on Nikita Krylov. Two ovs, but somebody's O is going to go. Carlos, who you got in this one?
Yes. All right. So I went with Krylov because he's got good movement and he can keep his striking long. So, and this is the thing that gets me is he can grapple, but in coming in, sometimes he gets clipped a lot. And even in over aggression with his striking, because his movement in and out, sometimes he gets tagged. Guskov is the type of guy that can tag you. They're both very big for the weight class. And Krylov is a tough guy. He's been getting tagged from people and coming back in the fight. Obviously against was it Dominic Reyes, he was out. He was done. But he does come back. He's a little bit more resilient than that fight would let on. So I'm thinking Krylov, because once he gets into a rhythm, he's going to be very difficult to slow down. Whereas Guskov, haven't really seen him get into that rhythm too much. Haven't really had to watch him. He just kind of either out physicals you or he doesn't. So I'm going to take Krylov, but like I said, the confidence in this one's a little rough. I could see Krylov getting clipped and possibly controlled on the ground and finished. So we'll see what happens. But Krylov, I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't trust either one of these guys. If you want me to be frank, I mean, when you look at that last performance with Krylov, where he lost to Dominic Reyes, I picked him in that fight. I thought he was going to be able to come in and smash the chin of the chinny Dominic Reyes, and he just came in far too wild, far too aggressive, and left himself open for the counter. And obviously, it cost him early in that fight. He pretty much just tried to run at him with his hands down, which was absolutely stupid. I don't understand that whole fight. I'm still getting flashbacks, but yeah, obviously Nikita Krylov is a pretty much a natural finisher apart from his last fight. The guy can get it done on the ground wherever the fight goes. You know, he's pretty much live for a finish. He did have a 2-year layoff before that Dominic Cruz fight. Maybe he was just anxious to get back in there, hence the overly aggressive nature of that fight. And it was coming off of a shoulder injury that he had to have surgery for. So maybe that was why. Maybe he comes in here a little bit more measured. And it's pretty much just the name of the game for him to really be aggressive. And when you talk about Guskov, he's got a dance partner here that is also going to be aggressive. All of his fights coming via finish as well. All of his wins coming via finish. Trains over at Gore MMA, the same gym as Walter Walker and Aaran Nurmagomedov. So obviously he's trained with some high-level guys over there in UAE. And he's traveled around a little bit. I've seen footage of him in different gyms. And he has a very powerful right hand, and that might be all it takes in this fight to catch a guy like Krylov who comes in overly aggressive. He rips to the body very well. You saw in his last fight that when he can't knock you out with the hands, with the head attack, he will level change and rip to the body and kind of go downstairs, go for that liver like he did against Billy, who we saw or talked about earlier on the card. And to me, this really just comes down to which guy lands first. We could see Krylov get the takedown early, like Guskov had to deal with in his last fight, or we could see Krylov getting clipped. I'm going to go with Guskov to get it done here with the hands, but I wouldn't be surprised if either guy won this fight, if I'm being completely honest. And next up, we have Almabayev taking on the short notice replacement of about a week of Jose Ochoa. Carlos, who you got in this one?
Yeah, I like Ochoa because he's got a lot of upside. He's got good takedown defense. He can get back to his feet, as we've seen in his last fight against Cody Durden. His striking is strong. Um, yeah, defensively, he moves his feet, he'll move his head, but he keeps his hands down. Still a little risky when he's coming in, but he does have smooth striking. Now, I think this is a huge test against Almabayev. Almabayev is he's obviously not. I don't think he's as skilled as Ochoa on the feet, but I do believe that he's a lot more dangerous because I think he's faster. I think he can hit a lot harder, and I think that he poses the threat of if I hit you, if I clip you on the feet, I can control you on the ground, beat you there if I have to. If you're going to get the best of me on the feet, I could take you to the ground and I can keep you there. Now, I just see this fight going. Almabayev is going to push the pace, and Ochoa is going to be fighting off his back foot. He's going to be fighting from behind and everything. He's going to be reacting to a lot of things, and that's why he's 24 years old. He came off a good win, and he took this on short notice. So I am assuming that they wouldn't have just threw him in with Almabayev. He's taking it. He's like, I'm going to take a chance. But I think Almabayev gets this done, and the reason being is because Almabayev's kind of an animal in this division, and him against Manel Kape, it was a good back and forth fight until until it wasn't, and he was in it though the entire time. And Kape is Ochoa is not Manel Kape, and I don't see Ochoa. Maybe in like 3 years from now, 4 years from now, it would be a formidable opponent, but right now, no, he's still got a lot of growing to do.
Yeah, two for Almabayev here. I'm right there with you. I think that loss from Manel Kape, kind of will recharge Almabayev here. Obviously, a very wrestle-heavy style, and he couldn't get the takedowns against Kape. I expect him to be able to get him here against Ochoa. Not necessarily easily, but a little bit easier than Manel Kape. Obviously, great blast doubles that Almabayev has. He has very nice single legs as well. Will run the pipe. And I just feel like with him that he knows exactly what he wants to do. He goes for the takedown. He doesn't give up on it. And I think here with a full camp, he's going to be able to push the pace exactly like Carlos said. I think that's going to play a big factor here. Wrestle early, get Ochoa tired because it's short notice. I think he's going to get a lot of control time here, beat him up on the ground. Almabayev does have nice submissions as well. And I think on the feet, he also showed in that Manel Kape fight that he, even though it's, striking isn't his first primary weapon inside the cage. He does have feasible striking, so he can hang on the feet with most guys. It is feasible enough that he's not going to be out of his depth, at least. And to me, Ochoa, I've been impressed with him so far. You know, that short notice fight that he had against Logan Kavanagh halfway around the world. Logan Kavanagh was able to get takedowns on him, which is why I also think Almabayev's going to be able to get takedowns. But he showed, you know, slick striking, a very back and forth affair on the feet with Logan Kavanagh, who's a great athlete. And he also showed in his last fight when he got the knockout against Cody Durden that he can hit hard, he has fast hands. And fighting out of, Diego Lima, the shooter box Diego Lima, they're known for their aggressive style, which shows in the 8 wins that he's got. Obviously 7 coming via knockout and 6 via submission. So the guy is very well rounded in terms of being able to get it done on the feet or the ground. Maybe he has a ground game we haven't seen and he pulls off the submission, but ultimately I think the wrestling gets it done here. I'm with Carlos. I think the short notice and the age here, step up in competition is going to be too much. Give me Asu Almabayev to get the wrestling done and get the win. And next up, we have Shara Nurmagomedov taking on the power bar Andre Barriault. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I went with Sharp Bullet, and the reason that I'm hesitant is because I don't really understand the breakdown for this, because I just see Shara kind of pummeling him until he gets him out of there. I don't think there's anything Marc-Andre could do. If he lands a wild right hand, I don't think it's going to put out Sharp Bullet, and I don't think he can take him down either. And I think before he gets close enough to take him down, I think he's going to get punished on the way in. I like Marc-Andre Barriault. I just think he's been in too many wars in the UFC, and he hasn't been in the UFC for the longest time. You know what I mean? But in that long time, he's taken a lot of shots, and I don't. He could be 50-50. You never know, but I'm going with Bullet. I don't see. I understand Bullet's ground game is not the greatest, but I just don't see Barriault getting this to the ground.
Yeah, this almost feels like a little bit of a showcase bout here for the UAE guy. You know, I know he's Russian, but, you know, those guys are best friends. And it just feels like he's a big star over there, obviously, in movies. It just feels like they're giving him an opponent here that he can get another highlight reel knockout for, to me. And when you talk about Shara Bullet, obviously great striker, great kickboxing. Obviously, this double spinning back fist knockout that he had was very impressive. And there's no secret he's got bad takedown defense. We've seen that. I do think Andre Barriault might come in and look to wrestle here. I think that's going to be the only thing he's going to be able to do. But when you look at, you know, Shara Bullet, you know, you can obviously see, you know, he sees things very well on the feet, you know, sort of. You know, blinding hand speed. Oh, shit, I just realized what I said. And a face only a mother could love. Yeah, you know, the guy is, I'm just kidding. I wrote all of those jokes in my notes. I know I'm pathetic, but obviously the striking here is pretty much going to be all that's going to be in order to get this one done. This is pretty much just a 1 + 2 = breakdown, a 1 + 1 = 2 breakdown here from me, which is why I had to crack a couple of jokes. But yeah, ultimately, I think Magomedov gets this one done early in round 1. I don't trust Barriault's chin. I think Magomedov's striking is far too elite for him. And this just feels like a little bit of a circus fight here just to get the fans behind him. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those fights where Nurmagomedov's minus 400 right now. By the time the fight happens, he's like minus 1,000 or something. So yeah, Shara Bullet getting it done. Nothing more to be said. And next up, we have the co-main event of the evening. And if you're enjoying the content, as always, if you love the dad jokes, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down Petr Yan taking on Marcus McGhee. Carlos, who you got in this one?
I'm going with no mercy in this one. High-level striking, good takedowns, good takedown defense. He's very tricky with his takedowns. A lot of foot sweeps, a lot of trips. I think that, you know, McGhee can hit. You know what I mean? Like that's what he could do. He's pretty explosive, pretty powerful. But after about 2 to 3 minutes in this fight, and Yan starts to pick up what he's doing, I really don't see McGhee winning this fight after that. I just see Yan being able to do whatever he wants to do. He can land wherever he wants to. He's going to take him down if he feels like it. And it's not to say that McGhee is not a good fighter. I just think that Yan is that much better. You know, he's very talented. He's very relaxed in everything he does. He's very calculated in how he does it. And McGhee's just a guy that, you know, He's a good athlete. He knows how to fight, and he can hit pretty decent for the weight class. But so can Jan, and I see this as I think it was it Song Yadong that Petr Yan last fought, and a lot of people thought that he was going to. He thought that Yadong was gonna beat him, and he just picked him apart. And I think Song Yadong is more of a matchup than McGhee. You know what I mean? I think his striking is a lot cleaner, a lot crisper, and I think that he probably hits just as hard. And I think he's more skilled on the ground. So yeah, let's go with Jan. I don't even know what else to say about it. I don't find McGhee to be a bad fighter. You know what I mean? I feel bad saying it, but it's like going up against Petr Yan. It's over.
Yeah, Jan's last matchup was against Davidson Figueredo and then Song Yudong. But to your point, I think
Okay.
arguably both of those guys are probably better than
Yeah.
or more of a competition than Marcus McGhee. But I'm right there with you. I agree. I am going to go with Petr Yan here. Obviously, like you said, technical boxer. You know, he's fought the who's who of the division. One thing I will touch upon here, though, is Jan is known for slow starts. So he's used to 5 rounds. This is 3 rounds. He can't afford to necessarily take that first round off, but he does do that in order to get his reads on the feet. So it is a technical sort of strategic decision. It's not like he's a slow starter in the respect that he's not comfortable in there. You know, the guy's got many fights against high-level guys. I do think he has obviously good cardio, but I would say he's more of a builder in fights. You know, you tend to see rounds 4 and 5. He's really taking over. He's putting volume and pressure on guys. When they're kind of wilting, he's getting stronger. So I'm a little bit worried that, you know, he might take that first round off and McGhee might catch him with his how explosive he is. Like Carlos said, you know, the guy is a pretty much a brick shithouse. The guy is very dense. The guy is very heavy-handed, smashes the lead leg, the calf, which is going to be a big weapon for him against a boxing heavy style of Petr Yan. And I do think that early McGhee might be live. I also think as well for a +3.5 bet for McGhee might be a good way to go here. Say Yan comes out slow, McGhee wins the first round fighting on the outside. You know, Yan wins 29-28, but we still cash here. Petr Yan is a big favorite here against McGhee, so I don't necessarily think that that's a bad bet considering Yan usually loses even in fights he wins. He usually loses the first round, so I think that might be a good play. McGhee obviously has very, very fast hands and he switches stances quite a lot. And he does step in with combinations. I do think he is a talented fighter, but I'm right there with you. I think Petr, no mercy, Yan gets it done here as the more technical striker. But I wouldn't be surprised 29-28 if McGhee wins the first round. Look out for that +3.5 bet for our best bets. And that brings us to the main event of the evening, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're enjoying the content, as I always say, hit that like and subscribe button as we break down Robert the Reaper Whittaker taking on Aaran Carlos. Carlos, who you got in this main event clash?
Well, let me start with this. Like Robert Whittaker, you know, he's been a favorite of mine for a long time. You know what I mean? He's got slightly awkward footwork when he's striking, you know, and he's got like he's got very good wrestling. Guys like Yoel Romero will never try to take him down, even though, like, you know, because Romero's a highly decorated grappler, but can't keep Whittaker down now against Hamzat Chimaev. Different story. So does that mean Whittaker's slowing down? Maybe. I don't know. Or maybe Hamzat's just that good. But what I do see is the fact that Renier de Ridder, ever since I've been watching this guy fight, he's been fighting guys that, you know, they bring hammers into the ring, like they can knock guys out. And Renier with his awkward style and his high stance and his chin up in the air, like he's only been caught twice, and that's by a guy that is a former heavyweight and light heavyweight champion. And that's when he moved up to 205. So I'm thinking like, okay, this guy just has an ability to absorb some shots if he has to, but something that he does is he batters the body at least and gets his weight on the back of your neck in a clinch just so he can get you to the ground. And he's been doing that his whole career. Robert Whittaker's got great movement. He darts in and out. He can hit, you know, he loves those kicks. All I know is that Renier's got something. I don't know what it is, but he's just got something. And he's going to find a way to get this where he needs the fight to be. And he's going to punish you on the way to doing it, even though as he's doing it, you don't even know you're getting beat up. So I'm going to take Renier de Ridder. I wish I had a method to be like, he's going to win doing this, and this, because I understand that. But the only thing I could see is he's going to beat the body until he gets Whittaker to the ground. And to be honest with you, once he gets him to the ground, this fight, not over in the sense that he's going to submit him, but his ground control, he's probably going to control Whittaker for a lot of the round. I just don't understand. I don't see how he's going to do it. This may sound stupid, but you know what I mean? I just don't know how he's going to do it because there's a lot of things that he's done against good fighters over the years. I don't know how he was able to pull it off, but against Whittaker, I just have the feeling he's going to pull it off. I had the feeling he's going to pull it off last time against what's that kid's name? The wrestler. Do you know what I'm talking about? What's it? Bone Nickel. Yeah. And against oh my goodness, on my mind there is going. What's the name? No. The other guy, the guy he fought first. Mershot. Everybody beats Mershot, so it's not even a big deal to me. But against Bone Nickel, he was able to do the same thing. So yeah. I see you want to laugh at me. I know my mind's going, so relax. All right. So I'm going with Reinier Durid. I'm going to stop. Blah, blah, blah. So go ahead, Reinier Durid.
Say it with me, people. Dog of the week. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Reinier Durid, a 2 for him. Underdog, dog of the week this week. Former light heavyweight and middleweight champion over in one championship. And I'm right there with you, Carlos. I'm going to give you a little bit more of a why I do think it is going to be the case, how I see this fight playing out. And just to talk a little bit about Bobby Knuckles. Let's just say Robert Whittaker. Love the guy. The guy's given us a lot of great performances. This is not a knock on him. He does look like he's slowing down a little bit. We can all agree on that. That after the Hamzat Chimaev face crank that broke his teeth, this is his next fight after that. You have to kind of think, what's going to happen if Reinier Durid kind of gets a body lock or some sort of rear naked choke here, and he kind of thinks maybe a little bit quicker about tapping after having his teeth broken by Hamzat. This is not the Robert Whittaker that we saw in those back and forth fights against Yoel Romero, taking a lot of damage in previous fights, getting dropped by jabs in previous fights now. And I got to say, man, I think Reinier Durid, and though he is very unorthodox, that he gets it done. 20-2, like Carlos said, his 2 losses coming against the same guy who's a very talented, beastly striker over in one championship who can also wrestle. And I love the way that Durid rips to the body, the way that he just constantly digs to the body. He makes, kind of like a dog fight, which is why he's going to be dog of the week. I love that you see the knees all the time as well, stepping in knee that he was able to drop and finish Bo Nickel with. And he's just constantly getting you up against the fence, clinching you, using his judo. And once he gets you down, he softens you up with ground and pound. He's not just one of these guys that just lays and prays. He's not one of these guys, jiu-jitsu style where they're just looking to sweep and pass guard and, kind of find the choke. He will soften you up with the long limbs and the elbows, which I really like. And I think here with Robert Whittaker, I think he's going to have the huge size advantage like he does against most of these middleweights. He, like Carlos even said to me before we started, which I totally agree with, he looks like if he filled out his frame, he could fight at heavyweight, 230, 240. He looks like a very, very big guy. At 6'4", he's going to tower over a guy like Whittaker. He's going to have the height, the reach. And I just think here that this one really just plays into the fact that we're seeing I don't want to say a shadow of himself, Robert Whittaker, but he's definitely on the decline. Ritter, obviously still 34 as well himself, both guys the same age, but I just think that size, that reach, that grappling is going to be all it takes here. The constant pursuit of takedowns is going to get, kind of tiresome for Robert Whittaker. And I just don't think that he's going to be able to have the respect here of Ritter. And I think he's going to be able to walk him down. We've seen with Whittaker that, he doesn't necessarily possess the most pop anymore. I know people are going to talk about that Ikram Eliskerov knockout. That guy had to do 2 weight cuts and fly across the world on short notice. I'm not surprised that Whittaker knocked him out in that fight. I think Ritter comes in here, ultimately beats him up on the ground, eventually gets the takedown, and ultimately wins this one either with a late submission or a late ground and pound finish here. Or maybe he even rides out Top Control here for a decision. But I think Ritter is not necessarily the most technical guy, but he's going to get it done here for the dog of the week. Carlos, is there anything that you want to add before we talk about what's coming on the channel?
No, you know how it is. Just hope you guys enjoy the content. And don't forget, if you're digging it, like and subscribe.
Hell yeah, and before we wrap things up, I got to let you guys know what's coming on the channel. We've got the UFC Fight Night Whittaker taking on Durid Best Bets video. That'll be there to put some money in your wallets later on in the week. And the Dog of the Week video. Got a highlight reel tape here for this week's Dog of the Week, so keep an eye out for that one as well. And as always, the quick pick video, if you're running short on time and you want to check that one out, that'll be there for you later on. And as always, if you're enjoying the content, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.